Hello and welcome to this remote learning GCSE English language class. So obviously this is going to be a slightly different experience for some of you. The reason that some of you are not in the classroom at the moment is because due to COVID-19 restrictions we have limits to the amount of students we can have in a GCSE English classroom due to our 1 metre plus rules. So this means that on a rota basis some of you will be out of the classroom maybe once every 4 lessons. Okay, but obviously the work that will be set for you is exactly the same as the work that will be done in the class with your teacher, but then they will give you feedback following the work that you've done. Okay, so let's get started. So in today's lesson, two main aims. First was to get an understanding of the GCSE exam. Obviously for some of you it will be a repeat experience. Well, for all of you it'll be repeat experience. Some of you repeat from the college. Some of you it will be a different exam from the ones that you took at school. And obviously for all of you, you didn't have the experience of having an actual exam in the summer. So we will go over carefully what the expectations are for the exams that you will do with us here at the college. And then what we're going to focus on is analysing what makes a good story and focusing on doing some writing with you. Okay, to start with, I've got a quick starter. Okay, so just to get you warmed up, can you find the mistakes? Okay, don't worry about what it says there about post your answer in chat. So find the mistakes, so maybe pause the video for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and can you rewrite that sentence there into correct English? Okay, so hopefully you've all done that. What it should be is hopefully you're too smart for your own good. Okay, so classic mistakes there, where you same sounding word, homophone, but different spelling. So it's just the sort of thing that you need to be wary of when you're doing your writing. Okay. Other thing we're going to start off doing is a word of the day. Okay, so this is the idea that each week you will learn a new word that hopefully you haven't come across before, and it's a word that will help you broaden your vocabulary and get a better understanding of the English language. So the word of the day today is bellicose. Okay, it's an adjective, pronounced bellicose, and it means somebody who's very hostile and very eager to fight or to go to war. It's quite a formal word, so you'd use it in like an academic essay or that type of thing. So as an example, Donald Trump used lots of bellicose language in his latest tweet. Okay. Bellicose. Pronunciation for you. Okay, so as I said, we're going to start with an introduction to the exam and just go over the different exam papers, what to expect in each one. Okay, so the exam board that we use here is Eduqas. So it's Eduqas GCSE English Language. So this might be different from the one that you did at school. I know there are 1 or 2 schools that use Eduqas in the area, but not that many. But the reason we chose it is because we think it's the most useful and the most straightforward exam for students to take. Okay. So a very quick overview. So there are 2 exams that you take. Exam 1, officially known as Component 1, and Exam 2. Okay, so there's a slight difference in the emphasis on the marks. So Component 2 is worth 60%, whereas Component 1 is only worth 40%. Okay, so that obviously means that Component 2 is slightly more important. Obviously both exams are really important, but Component 2 you do get more marks for. So Component 1 is the fiction, reading and writing, i.e. a story, read a story and then write one. And Component 2 is non-fiction. Okay, so breaking it down, it's equal weighting between the reading and the writing across the whole exam. So the Exam 1 reading is 20% of the total mark. So you get 1 long extract from a book. It could be any book from the 20th or even the 21st century. Okay, and it's really testing your ability to understand what the main themes are in a piece of fiction, being able to analyse a writer's use of their language, and to a certain extent use terminology properly. But it's the first 2 which are the most important skills. and also being able to evaluate the effectiveness and the impact of a text. Then the creative writing exam one, again, it's worth 20% of the total mark. Okay, so you have to write about 600 words for a story, a whole story in 50 minutes. Okay, so middle, beginning, end. Okay, and it's based on a choice of 4 titles, which are unseen. The teachers have no idea what the titles will be, so you have to write a story based on one of those 4 titles. Okay, so exam 2 is the non-fiction one. Okay, so again, it's split into reading and writing. Okay, so exam 2 is worth 30% the reading of the total mark. Okay, so it's about reading and comparing 2 non-fiction texts. Okay, one from the 19th century and one from the 21st century. Okay, and it's testing your ability to compare and contrast texts, to understand a writer's perspective, point of view, be able to analyse that writer's use of language. So similar skills to what was tested in paper 1, exam 1, but obviously here you're reading 2 different texts. Okay, the total number of words is probably similar to paper 1. Okay, and then you get the writing exam, okay, for paper 2, again 30% of the total mark. Really important, this one you have 2 writing tasks. So I know in some exam boards there's just 1, here you have 2 slightly shorter writing tasks, and there is no choice. Okay, so it's not do task 1 or do task 2, it's do task 1 and task 2. Okay, and it will be 2 of the following. So it might be a speech, a letter, formal letter, possibly a report, an article, or a review. Okay, might be an email, but unlikely. It's really likely to be one of those first 2 of those first 5. Okay, so like I said, that's a very quick overview of the exam, and in the weeks leading up to the November exam, you'll get the chance to practice all these different skills. So what we're going to practice on first of all is the paper 1 writing exam. Okay, so as I said, it's roughly about 50 minutes to write the story. Okay, so that in the exam there's no kind of differentiation between the reading and the writing. It's all in together, so you have to judge your own time during the exam. So like I said, it's about 500 to 600 words. Any less than that and you will start to get penalised, but you're unlikely to be able to write more than 600 words. Okay, so a couple of things. Need to keep it simple. Okay, that's really important. So, you know, it's only 600 words. It needs to be a simple, easily understood plot. It needs to be coherent. Does it make sense? Okay, so you don't have time to write about alien invaders or dwarfs or goblins or anything like that. It needs to be a fairly straightforward title. Okay, and it has to be related to the chosen title. Okay, we'll explain more about this in a bit. Okay, and then characterization. Who is the story about? Is it a believable character? Do you, as the reader, care about that character? Okay, so basically, you know, the best exam stories are the ones that are about real events that are believable and make sense. If you write about something that you know and you've experienced, or either yourself or from a friend or family member, it's going to be easier to write about that in the exam. Okay, so what we will be working on over the next few weeks is having 2 planned story ideas. So 2 different scenarios of things that have happened to you or things that you know about that can be adapted and changed to different story titles. Okay, so although we don't know what the story titles are, some of them are quite generic. Okay, they're quite open-ended, so with a little bit of careful planning you'll be able to use those stories that you've planned in the different exams. Okay, so first of all then we need to think about what makes a good story. Okay, so although it says here discuss in pairs, obviously you'd be working on your own, but you know, if you are with someone else, maybe pause the video and just make a few notes for yourself. You know, give yourself a couple of minutes to think through what makes a good story. Okay, in this time. Okay, so pause the video now and maybe write down 3 or 4 ideas what makes a good story. Okay, so obviously here we've got a list. Your list might be different, but hopefully it has some similarities to these. Okay, so first of all, has to be exciting. Okay, has to be coherent. Okay, the story has to make sense, and there has to be something of interest in the storyline. Doesn't mean it has to be about bank robbery or bomb explosion or aliens, but there needs to be something of interest that makes the reader want to read on. Okay, has to be interesting characters. Yeah, you have to care about the characters. They have to be believable. Okay, it's really important, obviously, when you're writing, to use good range of vocabulary, describe people and places carefully. Okay, understandably, this is an English exam after all. You have to have accurate English. Okay, and like I said, you need to be engaged with the story and the characters. The reader has to be engaged, has to care about them in some way. That's really, most important key. So even though you've only got 500 or 600 words, you can still, get across some idea, get to make an interesting character, interesting story that makes for a good reading experience. Okay. So one thing we're going to look at today is thinking about the plot and the storyline. Okay, so obviously we've said, if we go back to this part, we said it has to have an exciting, coherent plot storyline. Okay, so what do we mean by that? So again, pause the video. What makes a good plot? Okay, so again, do you have any of these? So, sounds stupid, very straightforward, but a plot needs a beginning, a middle and an end. Has to be some sort of development. Okay, the events have to be in a logical order. Okay, it has to be believable. Okay, so by believable plot, I mean, even fantastical stories can be believable, So by believable, it means not that it has to be real life, but that it has to make sense within the story that you've written. Okay, another really key thing, every story that is ever successful needs to have a problem or an issue for the main character to overcome. Okay, so it could be something as straightforward as they've locked themselves out of their house, or they've missed their bus and they need to get to school for their exam. Or it could be that Thanos has got the Infinity Stones and he's going to destroy half the universe. Okay, but all of these stories, what they have in common is this idea of a problem or an issue to overcome. Okay, and there needs to be some sort of development. So the situation at the end of the story has to be different from the situation at the beginning. It can't be the same. The character has to have changed in some way. Otherwise, all you've got is a description of somebody's life, and it's not going to make for a very good story. Okay, so hopefully, if you look on the if you look on the Moodle, okay, there'll be a link. So either click on this or go on to Moodle, and it's a link, if I show you, about a sequence of events. Okay, so if you click on the link on that PowerPoint, this is what you should come through. Okay, so all I want you to do is take quite a bit of time. Okay, so either download, if you can't download it, print it out, then just copy it onto paper. Okay, so like I said, to think through the events of a possible narrative, you need an effective plan. Okay, so first of all, we're just going to try and think of different events that happen in a normal everyday event. So working with a partner if you can, or like I said, work on your own. Try and sequence typical events that happen on a normal school or college day. Okay, so I want you to identify each main event, each part of the sequence in one column, so that's on the left hand side, and then add further details in the other column. So here it's got it's got about 8 spaces. So work your way through typical what happens, all the different things that happen on a normal day. Okay, so like I said, so pause the video, take about 10-15 minutes to do this. Okay, and then think about added further detail you can add. Okay, so now you've done that, just bear with me, just need to find the next thing. So you've got your normal events, and then the second stage, okay, is thinking about how a normal day could go wrong. Okay, so what we're working on here is taking a normal everyday event and then twisting it slightly to make it into an interesting story. Okay, so we're not writing a whole story now, we're just thinking about how you could change an event, change a story to make it personal to you, make it into a story for you. Okay, so obviously we've done the first stage, yeah, which was just normal everyday event. Okay, this time what I want you to do is take those same events and then think what would happen if one of those went wrong. Okay, so say for example your first main event was alarm goes off, get out of bed, turn the alarm off, go to the toilet. So to change it, the main event different would be alarm doesn't go off, wake up late, wake up in a huge panic. Okay, so hopefully you can see how I've taken a normal event and then by twisting one little detail, okay, we've created an event which is different from before. Okay, an event which has a problem, a plot which has a problem or issue to overcome. So again, take 10-15 minutes, work your way through that, and then see if you can twist each event in a certain way to make it a bit more exciting, like a problem to overcome. And also work on how one little change can have ripple effects. So if you're late, do you have breakfast? Do you not have breakfast? Do you forget something? Okay, does that mean you miss your bus? So if you miss your bus, what do you have to do? Do you have to run to college? Do you have to go on a bicycle? Do you then crash your bicycle, etc., etc.? So hopefully you can see how just by changing one event, making it into a problem, creates a whole chain of events that you can develop a plot out of. Okay, so like I said, so pause the video, work your way through it again, 10-15 minutes. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you've got that now. So hopefully you've got two kind of plot outlines. So you've got a normal plot outline, quite boring, normal everyday experience, and then you've got a plot outline where you've twisted the events in some way, changed it so that now it's a day that it's gone wrong. So hopefully you can see the difference between the two kind of plot outlines. One which is quite boring every day, and then one where you've created issues, created problems for the character to overcome, and that automatically makes it more interesting. Good. Okay, so again, what I want you to do is click on this link here. Okay, and this time we're thinking about creating a more interesting story and creating a story. Sorry. So what you need to do is click on this link. If I show you. Okay, it should take you through to this one here. Okay, so here we've got summary sentences that relate to a sentence, a narrative, where the title is Lost at Night. Okay, so for this one you do need to work on the computer itself. Okay, so I want you to read through all the different kind of sentences and then think how could you put it into a correct order to make a logical sequence of events. Okay, so all you need to do is go into here, and as you can see, you can clap and move them around till you get into the order that you think are correct. So again, pause the video. Okay, pause the video here, and then take some time to go on to the correct event. And then when you've done that, come back to the video. Okay, so now it doesn't really matter if you've got the same links, the same order as the one on the website here. Okay, so this is their suggested one. Okay, so an empty road starts with an empty road at the edge of the countryside on a winter night. The last lights before the town are flickering places, and the darkness envelops envelopes, sorry, the spaces in between. Okay, so it doesn't really matter if you've started, if the order's not exactly the same, but obviously that, look at how it starts, look at how it develops, and look at how it ends as well. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to go over here is the different events that happen in that story that we've just kind of put together. So a story in its very basic sense is a series of connected events. Okay, so we've got 6 different events. So what I'm going to kind of talk through is how that story works. Okay, breaking it down to the most basic elements of the story, and you can see how it develops over time. So first of all, you're setting the scene. Yeah, so you're kind of setting the scene. It's a deserted road. It's a blizzard. So heavy snow, issues there. Okay, you've got description of the car breaking down. You've got arguments breaking out. Okay, so this is the problem that the characters need to overcome. So you've set up the scenario, created a problem for the characters, and you're expanding that problem. Yeah, so the weather gets worse and worse. The 4 people in the car cannot get help. They're stuck, and then explain more and more. Cold makes them all fall asleep. And then, obviously, the gruesome delivery the next day, the car found with the frozen bodies inside. Okay, so if you think back to the 2 stories that you created, hopefully your second story wasn't about, you freezing to death in a car. But hopefully you can see how, this story could have had a very different outcome. So it could have been a story, 4 people driving home at night time. Yes, the weather's a bit bad, but they get home safely. The end. Very boring story. However, by changing some events, showing things that have gone wrong, it kind of filters out and you get that ripple effect I was talking about before. Okay, so you've got a situation, so one thing changes, bad weather, then the car breaks down. And because of that, things get progressively worse and worse. Okay, so therefore that gives you your plot outline. Okay. So, what we're going to look at now are 2 example stories, okay? And I want you to do 2 things as you're looking through it. These are on the Moodle page, which I'll go to in a bit. So, I want you to take a bit of time for this one, okay? I want you to identify the key events in each example, okay? And then I want you to think which of the extract is more successful and which extract has more weaknesses and why. What is the difference between them? Okay, so bear with me whilst I just bring up the extracts that you need. They are on here somewhere. Here we go. Okay. So, on the Moodle page, you've got narrative story and story examples. So if you just click on that one, for a moment for it to open up. Like I said, click on these 2 here, okay, and that will give you the 2 different examples of stories to read. Okay, so go through those 2 examples and then think about which one is more successful, why it's more successful, and also then which one doesn't work and why doesn't it work. Okay, so these are examples from the exam board itself, okay, which hopefully will give you some ideas of how to read them yourself. Okay, so again, just pause the here we go. Okay, so there's that one. Okay, that's the whole story. And then this is story example plot 1. Okay, so basically, so you're comparing that one with the story that we've just read. Okay, so look at those 2 examples Then pause the video, take your time, look over what's good about them, what doesn't work, and then we'll talk through the examples together. Okay. So, welcome back. Hopefully you've had some time to go through those there. Okay, so remember this was our task. Read through those two examples, one from the exam board and one another example, which is more successful and which has more weaknesses and why. Okay, so hopefully you all agreed that the extract one had some problems with it. Okay, so we'll go over in a bit, but generally so these are some of the main problems. So simple vocabulary, there's a lack of detail and description of the setting of the characters, inconsistent plot and ideas, lack of build-up of tension, and then lack of believability. Okay, the ending wasn't very believable. You know, like I said, it's not about it being a strange event, it's about whether it follows on logically. So if we just look at that example, somewhere, if I can find it on my desktop, here we go. Okay, so if you think some examples we said, it was cold and windy, so we decided to go to our mate's house. Our mate is called Paul, he's okay for a laugh, the day was different. But went anyway, and a race there was fourth, but at least it wasn't last. Okay, so little bit of attempt at setting context. It was cold and windy, but then it's just like, oh, he's alright. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Okay, and then when we got there, it was still windy and cold, so repetition, very simple vocabulary. There was no answer. What to do? Went to the woods. Bit worried, it was cold and windy. Again, same vocabulary. They had scary hands when you saw them, so it's some attempt at, you know, showing it a little bit more detail, but not very effective. What was going on? Cold wind, it was horrible voice, someone was after me. So trying to build up tension here, but it happens quite suddenly. And then I heard Sam, and then he was dead. Okay, so again, all of a sudden he's dead. Okay, so no description, no sudden shock, it's just dead. Okay, and then I suddenly found an abandoned oak shack in the trees, as you do. Yeah, what does it look like? We don't know. Okay, there was a knife, I was in trouble, I ran away, and then I found my mum and dad standing in the middle of the path. Okay, so again, so we're talking about unexpected, doesn't make sense. How did they get there? Why are they there? You know, it doesn't make sense. And then a voice shouted, I will kill you all. I saw the knife, but my dad shot him dead with a gun. Okay, so again, not a very believable ending. He's dead. Doesn't make sense. I think we'll be all right now, son. We all went home. Okay, and we never talked about it again. We still don't. I never went to those woods again. Okay, so it's not very believable. You know, it's like they're running around and suddenly they're all dead, and then there's a madman, and then his dad shoots him. The end. Okay, so this is the sort of story you need to avoid. Not very coherent plot. Doesn't make a lot of sense at all. Whereas if we go back to the other one, okay, so you can still, although you know it's still quite a fantastical event in a way, okay, but if you compare the beginnings, an empty road at the edge of the countryside on a winter night. The last lights before the town are flickering places, and the darkness envelops the spaces in between. Okay, so a lot better description, wider vocabulary, creates that sense of unease. Okay, and then it builds its way through. The cold is intense, succeeded, flickering street lights, lost in the darkness. So there's lots of nice imagery here. Okay, the wind starts to howl through the trees. Okay, so again, a bit of personification. So it's building up the sense of kind of danger very effectively. Okay, and then you get quite a nasty ending, but you know it does make sense in terms of what has come before. Okay, so although you know both of these stories involve people dying, nice cheery subject, I know. Okay, at least this one has more of an effective kind of outlook and effective ending. So what I want you to do now is basically plan your own story. Okay, don't have to write it, But for the rest of this lesson, and this is what you will need to take to your teacher when you have your next face-to-face lesson, is a rough outline of a story. So try and maybe pick out 6 main events, okay? So you could use that idea, like we said, of write down the normal events as you've hopefully done already, and then twist them. Yeah. So you did it with just coming to school, coming to college. So what you could do is like going on a journey or going on a holiday. Yeah, taking a plane. Okay, going on a train. Anything like that, and then try twisting it. What goes wrong? What are the ripple effects? So for next week and for your next lesson, take that to your teacher. Plan it out. Okay, so thank you very much. Hopefully you've enjoyed this, and good luck. Just wait. You can start now.